Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of AEW Dynamite Grand Slam Edition for Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. As we saw last year, they really wanted to treat the Arthur Ashe Stadium show as a real big tentpole TV event, wanted to put a lot of hype and a lot of build into it, so we got a lot of big pay-per-view caliber matches on this evening's show. So did it live up to the hype? We're going to find out, beginning with the ROH World Championship match as Claudio Castagnoli defense against Chris Jericho. This match was made in a promo this past Friday on Rampage, where Jericho is seeking his 8th World Championship, and they're calling it the Ocho here. First of all, I want to say, just in general on this show, I really liked a lot of the big shots that really showed the space of Arthur Ashe and just showing how many people were there. These big sweeping crane shots, the set being a little different. It just felt like a unique, special show, and I think a lot of the camera work, a lot of the production really helped push it in that regard. And this is a pretty good match here. Claudio's starting off hot. He's a very much uppercut-based offense is the best way to describe this one. That is one of his primary moves here. Claudio starting off hot, but then Chris Jericho using Kerry Silken, the former owner of ROH and ambassador of the company, using him as a human shield and shoving him into Claudio. That was terrifying to watch, but that was how Jericho took over here. There's a suplex off the apron onto the floor at one point. Great moment here and really showing Claudio's his strength as a base, where he's got Jericho up in the top corner in turnbuckle going for a power bomb, but Jericho's able to counter it into a Hurricane Rana off his shoulders. That was great. Jericho kicking out of the Ricola bomb. Claudio kicks out of the Code Breaker. At one point, Jericho grabs the bat from the outside. He goes to swing it, but Claudio blocks it. The referee gets turned around, and that allows Jericho to hit Dick Kick City, followed up with the Judas Effect to win the match and the ROH World Championship. I thought that was kind of a shocking conclusion there. Ian Riccaboni, who was helping call this match, had a great description of what happened here. A dark cloud of dishonor has covered the legacy of the Ring of Honor World Championship. I thought that was a great call there, and now you've kind of completed this transfer of ownership. The ROH World and Pure titles used to belong to the Blackpool Combat Club, but now they're in the Jericho Appreciation Society camp. And you've got the whole stable out there celebrating with Jericho, including Daniel Garcia, who's being a real sourpuss about the whole thing, because of course he wants Jericho to win his matches with honor, and that's the opposite of how Jericho did this one. Definitely surprised surprised but also not surprised that Jericho won the championship here. I could see this as either somewhat of a consolation prize if they never really see him being the AEW champion again, or maybe kind of like how I felt that how Claudio Castagnoli's reign as ROH champion was, where I felt that it was kind of a nice little stamp, kind of a thing of a lifetime achievement or career achievement thing, kind of a here you go sort of thing as a reward for all his hard work, getting his first world championship. And I feel that with Jericho is kind of a similar thing, where it's kind of a, hey, thanks for all you've done. Here's another world championship. I'm curious to see how Jericho will take the ROH mantle and carry it as the champion. How closely will that tie into whatever Tony's vision of ROH in the future as a potential second brand is? I think it's very curious to see, especially the way Garcia responded to this, them both being ROH champions. How will that play into it? There's a lot of different ways this could go. Again, I'm not entirely surprised that Jericho won this one, but I think that Claudio, his reign was good. I mean, he had 5 good defenses out of it, including his great match with Gresham to win it. But I think that, pretty much ran its course. We move on to the big rematch from All Out as the AEW tag titles are on the line. Swerve and Our Glory defend against the Acclaimed, and of course the challengers get a big hero's welcome at this one. The champs come out with Fabulous, and the Acclaimed come out with Daddy Ass and DJ Woo Kid, and apparently DJ Woo Kid is the official pronunciation. Early on, Lee's running the ropes, doing his surprisingly agile things. He hits Anthony Bowens with a Hurricane Rana. That was pretty cool to see. Max Caster takes a lot of the heat during the commercial break, but he's able to come back, hit like a suplex pseudo brainbuster on Lee, which is impressive to show the strength there. Lee hits a big Beal to Bowens to the outside, so he lands on that LED ramp. It was funny, anytime wrestlers went onto the ramp, and they're fighting point during this show, because you see the movement of the street and the cars are driving by. Oh my God, they're in traffic. Then on the outside, Billy Gunn gets in the face of Swerve, and when the referee's not looking, he hits Swerve with the Famouser, brings him back into the ring, and the Acclaimed finish him off. Big mic drop from Caster connects, and the Acclaimed are officially, finally, the tag team champions. And we get the big confetti celebration and everything. You know, the fact that the Acclaimed definitely cheated to win this thing like heels, even though they're faces, fans didn't care. They were still very much happy to see that there. And I think that it was, we didn't get it at All Out. Some would argue that they should have called it audible or whatever, and we didn't get that moment there, but we got the moment here instead. And so waiting a couple extra weeks to get that, I think was worth it, because again, the euphoria of them finally winning it, I think, was the payoff. And even if we didn't get it one night, we got it here on Arthur Ashe, and I think that was just as good. Then after the match, FTR, remember them? They're being interviewed backstage, and they congratulate the Acclaimed on winning, but they say, hey, we're still #1 contenders, and we want that tag title shot. In come the Guns, Austin and Colton. No longer the Gun Club, just the Guns. And they just mock FTR in this really kind of undeserved way, where they're like, hey, we're younger and more talented and more charismatic than you. Top guys out. And then they leave. And that was pretty much that segment. But I'm like, what exactly? I don't know. It's quite a big leap for the Gun Club to go from feuding with the Acclaimed to being on the outs with their dad to suddenly potentially getting thrown into a match with this god tier tag team that they're building, or not building, in FTR. The treatment of FTR is so confusing in AEW, and I guess this will be kind of a transition thing for them as they maybe challenge the tag belts. Who really knows? But yeah, that whole FTR story is something, it's confusing, man. Tony Schiavone on stage with Wheeler Yuta, and he's asking, hey, your two dads are fighting for the world title tonight. How do you feel about that? Before he can answer, though, Maxwell Jacob Friedman making his way to the stage, once again getting a huge hero's welcome. Despite the fact he's definitely still playing a dirty, devious heel, the fans can't help but cheer for him. It's kind of an interesting spot he is in right now. But he runs down Wheeler Yuta, he runs down all the fans and saying they worship him, they would drink his spit if they wanted to, he could sleep with all of their wives if he wanted to, but he has standards. Wheeler responds by bringing up the fact that MJF actually got engaged this past week, and he says that your fiance is hopefully smart and she will walk out on you the way that you walked out on all of us, referring to the big shoot promo several months ago and him supposedly leaving, allegedly. So MJF saying, Mox and Danielson, they're fighting to see who will lose the championship to him at some point in the future, and he brings up the fact that Bryan Danielson keeps getting hurt, and he brings up William Regal's past drug addictions, which caused Wheeler to strike him. And then you've got this moment here where MJF and he are scuffling. MJF pushes down Tony Schiavone and gets in his face. They're fighting. W. Morrissey shows up and holds Wheeler back so MJF can knock him out. Thought it was an okay segment. I thought, again, showing how much of an asshole MJF is. Wheeler Yuta kind of standing up to him and showing some backbone in probably one of his fieriest promos he's had in AEW. So I think that was a good showing for him. And again, showing and reestablishing the connection that MJF has with the firm kind of being shown here. So, got the job done. Getting heat on Schiavone is always a good way for people to boo you. And so there we have that. And then we go right to pre-taped Schiavone right after that, where he's interviewing Jade Cargill and the baddies. Jade has got a TBS title defense this Friday against Diamante, who's bringing a special guest, a secret weapon, to be in her corner to counter the baddies. And Diamante shows up and brings out the OG baddie, Trina, who, as I understand, is a rapper. And that's pretty much all I got from that. So there we go. It's just, we all these different rappers making appearances tonight and on Friday, and this is another one of them. The classic rivalry is renewed, this time for the All-Atlantic Championship as Pac defends against Orange Cassidy. And this match, these two have great chemistry. We've seen it when they have wrestled in the past. They frequently reference the match they had at Revolution 2 years ago, and there are even some callbacks to it in the match itself, like when Pac gets on the top rope, Orange slowly rolling away from him, and so Pac just responds by diving to the outside onto him. They do another spot where Pac goes up top and Orange just blatantly telegraphs putting the feet up, and then Pac tries to do something with it, but Orange catches him in kind of a pinfall predicament. That begins Orange's big comeback, some gnarly looking DDTs, and the way that Pac bumps for them is pretty sick. We get an Orange punch and a rope break. Pac goes to the outside, grabs the ring bell hammer, and he blocks the view of the referee and hits Orange with it before he just brings him in the ring, covers and wins. pretty open and shut case at the end of that one, and it really kind of took the wind out of a lot of the sails of fans there. Pac is one of those guys who's kind of a tweener. I mean, he is the bastard, and they make frequent reference to that and everything, but I was always kind of under the assumption that he was a face, just kind of like in the way that the people he wrestled primarily kind of made him a face by default in the last year or so, I think. And so this is a particularly heelish move, and I think that's kind of almost like outside the box of what the Death Triangle has been doing. So kind of a departure, but also, like I said with Jericho's win, surprising but no, given his character. And I'm wondering if that's going to lead to something with he and the Lucha Brothers, or if that's just going to be a one and done thing. But yeah, it was definitely an abrupt way to end that match. What was otherwise a fine match, and again, it kind of played up on the same kind of drama and excitement that they had in their last couple of exchanges, but this one has had much more of a flat ending. A four-way match for the interim Women's World Championship as Toni Storm defends against Serena Deeb, Athena, and Dr. Britt Baker. I love Serena in this matchup because there's a lot of multi-person spots that she does in particular. A great spot where she's got Toni in a leg lock and then simultaneously puts Athena in an abdominal stretch, followed up by a suplex while not letting go of the leg hold on Toni. I thought that was great. There's a double superplex by the heels onto Toni before the break, and then we come out of the commercial break and there's this stereo single leg crabs, which I thought was pretty awesome as well. Athena catches both Britt and Serena and slams them both. Britt tries to capitalize on Toni with a roll, but she counters into one of her own to win and retain. Once again, I am always shocked when Britt Baker takes a clean loss, and this was no exception, but that match happens. Britt somehow gets her nose busted in the process here, and so then she does a bit of a beat down, and then you've got Jamie Hayter running in, and we get that confrontation again, and kind of similar to last week where she ends up beating up somebody else instead of Britt. The same thing happens, but now it's official. We're definitely on the same page now. It's so what was the weird false start we had last week? It was just one added week of possible tension, but it's a ruse. And so Jamie Hayter apparently back with Dr. Britt. They're about to do some more damage, and then suddenly Saraya shows up, the former Paige and my interview guest in Nashville last month or 2 months ago. She makes her first appearance in AEW, a monstrous pop for her. It's easily one of the biggest pops of the entire evening. She shows up, all the other ladies run out of there, and Saraya's in the ring saying this is her house. What a cool moment. Now, she was pretty tight-lipped when I interviewed her during the StarCast weekend about a possible in-ring return, about possibly going to AEW. And she didn't say much about that here, obviously holding secrets close to the vest. And this also makes me wonder, well, damn, the way she came out there is she coming back to the ring? Because that was a big question. Is she good to compete again? The way they presented that tonight makes me feel that maybe she is. And that would be great to see. I think it's, we've seen this a lot in the last several years. Wrestlers coming back from these supposedly career-ending injuries and coming back and doing great work. And I think that Saraya could be one of those people to do that. So time will tell, but man, what a cool move that was to have her debut on a show like this. And again, that pop was just tremendous. There's a video of Darby Allin dragging a body bag around New York City, and he hails a cab wanting to go to Arthur Ashe because he's going to a funeral. And just judging from conversations I've had with enough people who've lived in New York or live in New York, that feels like something that wouldn't be too out of the ordinary, honestly. We go to our main event. It's the tournament finals for the vacant AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, the rematch from Revolution earlier this year, which was the match that began the Blackpool Combat Club. And these two charter members now are fighting for the belts. So who's going to win here? This is a great match. You've got MJF in the stands, which they establish immediately from the beginning, and boy, they show him a lot. Literally, it's like every other shot is MJF with a poker chip and everything in the stands. We get it. And it becomes excessive. There's only literally one time where I think it's actually a good transition from the action to MJF, and that's near the end where you've got the two guys trading stomps to the face, and it cuts to MJF making this face Ooh, like he's kind of shocked by what he sees here. That was brilliant. That was amazing. But like I said, very physical match as advertised. You got your strikes, your joint manipulation, your graps. It's all there. You've got Danielson kicking out of 2 Death Riders, and you've got Moxley kicking out of 2 Busaiku knees. We get upside down slappies at one point. It's brilliant stuff here. In the end, Moxley though gets on top of Danielson with a choke, and Danielson can't respond. The referee calls the match, and Moxley wins and is the new 3-time AEW World Champion. Very surprising, considering that he was the one who said that he was about to go on vacation after All Out. And now he's here and he's their champion again. So back to the grind for you, Moxley. I mean, it shows you how much they love Moxley and how much they value him as a locker room leader and as a big star in the company to put the belt on him again. I was hoping for Danielson to win just for variety, but we didn't get that here. My one real disappointment with this wasn't even the match. It was the afterward, where they seemed to have go heavy enough to the fact there's no real time to really let that title win breathe, that moment breathe. You see Danielson talking to Regal after the match and everything. I would have loved to have seen a moment on camera where something happens, and you don't get that because the show ran, the match ran heavier for whatever reason. There's no time for that. So that's, kind of a small thing, but also to me this feels like a show where beyond just the world title changing hands here or Moxley winning it, you should end on some kind of big cliffhanger, some big shocking moment. Not necessarily MJF like cashing in the chip and winning that night like a lot of people kind of predicted, but just something to kind of end on this big, something to kind of try and top that, I would think. And that was kind of a missed opportunity for a couple of the reasons. So besides that though, I think it was a great matchup, very strong way to end the show. I thought it was a really strong show, not a bad match on the show this evening. I thought it all really delivered in-ring wise. A couple of pre-tape promos that I didn't really care for just because these don't really tell me much. And again, the timing of the end of the main event to going to black, I wish that we had more time to flesh that moment out, but we didn't get it. But yeah, a very, very interesting show. A lot of big moments that we saw there. I loved seeing the Acclaimed get their moment in the sun. Soraya's debut was just crazy. Again, how the audience reacted to that. Clearly, wrestling fans as a whole miss her, and they were very happy to see her back. The title changes we saw with Jericho and Castagnoli, and then with Moxley winning the belt, those were strong moments as well. And yeah, this has me really curious to see where not just AEW, but also ROH goes in the future. So yeah, like I said, this was a show with very few things to complain about in my opinion. But what did you think of this week's show, folks? I want to hear about it in the comments section below. And if by some reason you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you get all the latest Wrestling with Regret content delivered straight to your subscription feed. I'm really excited for next week's Wednesday video, folks, where I look at the wrestling career of Andy Kaufman. I really hope you enjoyed that video. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.